Hi, and welcome to section 9 of the DIY telesales course with me, Chris Newton. And this section is all about the follow-up. As a good friend of mine always says, the fortune is in the follow-up. So we're going to have a look at how to do that really, to get the most from our sales activity. Okay. Usually, in the real world, when you have a conversation with somebody, you would jot notes down after you finish speaking to them. And it's important to be able to summarise the essence of the conversation and focus it on various things. But don't make it a war and peace, make it a bullet point, but make it easy and ask yourself a question. If somebody else was reading this, would they be able to understand it? Because if the answer is no, then you're not doing it properly, because you may have to hand this across to somebody else within the business. You may be a business owner now and you take on somebody to do the sales activity for you, in which case they are going to need to follow on from you. So your own abbreviations not only will mean nothing to them, if you don't contact this company for 6 months, you might forget what you meant by ABD or whatever you've put. So be clear but concise. Focus on the pain points, the issues that this company or this individual have, because these are the things that are going to help you sell to them in the future. Note down the personal information of the person that you're talking to, but again, as I've said before, be very careful not to overdo it. But if you are careful about it, then it can work very, very well. If you note down where their villa is or where their favourite holiday spot in the UK is, the name of their dog, or their favourite hobby or pastime, you can bring that into a conversation carefully at some point, and they will be very flattered that you have remembered that about them. You haven't remembered it, of course, you've put it in your notes, but so yes, okay, a bit of a cheat, but it really will get you a lot of brownie points if you do it correctly. Always summarise within the notes and note down where you've left that prospect. The key to this is to never leave a prospect swinging in mid-air, as it were. You've got to understand what's the next step. Even if the next step is to do nothing, then that has to be clear on your database for you and everybody else, so that you don't keep knocking your head against the same brick wall. If this person has categorically told you that they will never ever use you because they don't need what you sell, then be clear about that. So, but leave it on your database so that you don't bump into somebody at a networking event from the same company and put them back on the database again and go round and round in circles. Recognise a dead end, in other words, when you see one, and make sure that you're just being realistic and where are you up to with this particular prospect right now. Grouping data can be a really useful thing to do for future marketing events and activities, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail in the next slide, or slide after that. So using a CRM, a customer relationship management tool of some sort, there are plenty about. I've given you some examples there of free software CRMs. You may elect to just simply create a database from an Excel spreadsheet. It's entirely up to you. The key, whichever technique you use, is, as I've already said, be brief, to the point, make sure it's clear where you are with each prospect. I've given you a shell database document in the toolbox for you to make a start with, and I do actually go through that with you as well, to give you a head start. And decide in advance what kind of intelligence do you need. So if you're a contract cleaning company, for example, you will need to know when the renewal date of this company is. You will need to know whether they use a competitor contractor or whether they have an in-house solution, and so on and so forth. So you'll need to think about all the bits of information that you need and will need to ask the database or the CRM at a later stage. So a little planning now will go a long way, and I guarantee you that. So this is just a tip really on how to group data. Grouping data can help. Let's give you an example. So if you're making sales calls, let's continue the example that you're doing Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays for an hour each day, each morning of those 3 days. and so you're amassing, your database is getting bigger and bigger, and you decide that you want to do a piece of marketing activity based on all of the clients that use Blue Widgets. So if you've set out your data in such a way that you can get your CRM or your Excel spreadsheet to press a button and just basically filter out all the ones that use anything other than Blue Widgets, you've now got a database of Blue Widget users at the push of a button. The same as, but you've got to have set that up in the first place, otherwise it won't be able to tell you. So that's why freehand notes are great, because they tell you the story, but you can't use them for interrogation unless you're looking for specific words, but that's kind of another thing. So a little thought now will go a long way, but things like that are really useful. So when you do come to follow up, when you put the next call in, because you've noted down their name, this is the first person conversation, you've spoke to her or him, you've taken her name, hello, is that Michelle, remember, you build rapport. They won't remember you, but the fact that you've remembered them will be great. Don't overdo it, don't be too familiar, but a little name drop here and there doesn't do any harm. Recap on the last conversation. When you get through to the decision maker, recap on last time we spoke, you said that you were waiting for Miss Frobisher's replacement, and that you wouldn't be able to progress with this until that's happened. You expected somebody to be taken on in June, and what you're actually doing is you're confirming to him or her, because they'll have forgotten you, I'm afraid, that you did have this conversation, otherwise you wouldn't know all this intelligence. And it also confirms to them that you are compliant. You're ringing them because they've asked you to ring. So it just puts you in a better light at that point. Try and have a standalone reason. Have another go at coming out to see them. It could be that you've written a report, the top 7 things that building contractors need to know about bricks. Whatever it is, try and have a standalone reason. I wanted to come out to see you because so irrelevant of what you might think and whether you might use me or not, we've got this to talk about as well. So that's also why I'd like to come and see you. It can now and again swing things your way. Agree on the next steps. Be clear on the next steps. The next steps might be, no, I know I've said I'll be ready to talk to you now, but I'm afraid I'm not. It's going to be another 3 months. Okay, so I'll ring you in 3 months' time then. You have to get used to that a little bit, but steady perseverance will pay off. So make a note of everything, ready for next time, so that when you or anybody else reads your notes, you'll understand exactly where you are with that record. So with all that in mind, your task for this part of the course is to make a list of all the things that you would want your CRM or your spreadsheet to tell you. Think about the columns. There is a little tutorial in the toolbox on database manipulation, which should help get you off to a good start, but ultimately it will need to be down to you as to how to do this. But again, as always, I'm available. If you want to ask me any questions, then you can do. And so there we are. Do feel free to email or call my offices. All right, so that's it on the follow-up. I hope that's been useful for you, as everything else. And in the next section, we will be talking about compliance, which is, of course, very important subject. Okay, so thanks for listening. The key takeaways from this particular section is to basically be absolutely clear on what you write, make sure other people can understand it, and make sure you're setting your stall out for the future in the most time productive and effective way possible. Thanks very much again. I'll see you in the next time.